My mouth's full.
You're grand.
I'm going to start whenever your mouth is full.
Okay, go.
Welcome to Show Some Love Live. Cathy Martin is on professionally eating something. Yeah, tuna ball. But we are here, we're queer, and we're in Greenhouse. We've officially dropped the clapper. And we are going with our original songs. This next one we wrote last week, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it's very hard.
It's called Absolutely Fabulous. You're absolutely fabulous. What other words are there?
That's it. You just keep saying it.
Well, today we are joined by kind of if Patsy and Eddie had a baby, also known as the Anna Wintour of the North. It is Cathy Martin. Hello. That is so funny. Well, what a wonderful way to start the show.
I know.
I'm Connor.
And I'm Becky.
And together we are Show Some Love. We are a charity, and this is our podcast. Today we are joined by the wonderful Cathy Martin. Woo! We're getting some fucking good guests.
Sure
We've been trying to, you're a busy woman. We've been trying to book you. We've been trying to sort of schedule our lives around each other. But we've got you. You're live in Greenhouse, and we're going to grill you for the next hour. Apologies for what was this is behind the scenes stuff, but what is probably one of the ropiest starts we've ever had. We are at where we're sending the last episode as well. We record a couple at a time. But we are so tired, just like so in need of the amount of people recently that are like, oh, I'm going on a wee holiday.
Yeah.
Do you know what I need? I need to escape to whatever island. And I need to escape to whatever island forever.
Yeah.
You know, or at least 5
or 6 days.
5 or 6 years.
You two do deserve a holiday. You do work
Thank
really
you.
hard. And that's obvious to me and hopefully anyone else who watches you on socials or comes in and out of Greenhouse for whatever reason. Like, you do work really hard and you do deserve a break. And if I had a holiday home in a gorgeous place, I would give it to you.
You don't?
Thank you.
Not
But
quite.
that's the reason why we
Working
have
on
you
it.
here.
I know.
We totally thought you had a patent on it all.
The picture that I have sort of the Anna Wintour of the North of it all, that I sort of have for you is that you have a yacht somewhere.
Little kid
No,
hair in Paris.
Well, you know, my dream has always been to have a place in France. And I went to university in France, and after my A-levels I lived in France, and I've lived there on and off. And my other half sister has a beautiful place in Provence where we're going to next week. Sorry.
Just
so,
right.
you know, that it has always been a dream of mine. And hopefully it still will remain a dream that will eventually manifest. I'm not rushing to it.
Yeah.
But it is, you know, I feel really drawn to France. I spent so much time there. I speak French fluently. I love the culture, the language, the food. So that is a goal. And when I have that house, you two will definitely come and
I
stay.
love
We will
it.
co-manifest it for
Good.
you.
Brilliant.
In that way.
How would you see that? So you would sort of finish up. Suppose you never really know when you're finished, you know. But if you were really in a space of like, that's me, I'm done with this. I'm going to shut down all my social media accounts. My website's going. I never want to speak to a client ever again, and just do a runner. Is that how it works? You just sort of sell up, and
Not for everybody. Not
No,
for everybody.
I would never not work.
See, we're the
Or
same.
never
Same.
not have
Yeah.
projects.
Same.
And I know, you know, everyone has hypothetical conversations about what would you do if you won the lottery and those kinds of things. I cannot ever imagine myself not working, but what that work looks like might be slightly different. It might be more project based. It might be, you know, a time for me to indulge in my passions, which are way, you know, probably different to what you or others would expect me to be interested in. And in fact, we'll see when I lift out one of my little things. You know, I am really impassioned by, you know, lots of things which are completely different to what I do day to day now.
yeah.
Good.
And also that slow life. It's the antithesis of what we're all kind of doing now.
Yeah.
Totally.
And so, and I think we all deserve a bit of the slow life at some point in life, you know, and I will embrace it with both arms when it comes.
Yeah.
You like for the little bit that we get to see into your life, sort of beyond. So you work as a PR. You're a blogger. You're a management you're a talent manager. You've got models on the go. You're previously known for Belfast Fashion Week and loads of other events and bits. And you're kind of just you're sort of that woman in this city when it comes to all of those sectors. And I know that's very difficult to hear because we're from this country, and it's
and it's scundering.
It's scundering. It's embarrassing, but it's true.
But it's also to be very proud of.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, I do remember when I was kind of starting out in my own business, and I was chatting to Alison Campbell, who has been a great mentor to me over the years and whatever, and she said, you need to choose one thing. You know, don't be a PR and a journalist. Don't be this and that. And I remember thinking, that's really tough for me. And like Alison was a really good guide for me in my early days. But actually, I pushed back against that, and I think I was the original slash girl. So I was a PR slash journalist. You know, I did write. I did my media training in the BBC. I did get a journalism qualification. So you know, and I still want to be that. You know, I think even on social media managers always tell people to really niche down or niche down because they're all American. Yeah. And that's okay, but I'm not a niche kind of person. I love fashion, but I also love food, but I also love family, but I also love, you know, faraway places. So that's why I called my original blog The F Words. It was all of those things which I'm passionate about. And I don't think we do need to niche down. You know, we all don't. You know,
we were given the same advice.
Yeah.
Constantly, we were given the same advice. We were told, like, you need to think of like what is your single origin story, and then you need to focus on one thing and all the rest of it. And whilst in terms of like delivering aid, of course, whenever you've got a direct output for it, we wanted to make sure that we got excellent at one bit before we added something else on. Yeah. But it's kind of the story of this place as well, where it's like you can't necessarily put us into one box. Do you know, even the fact of how we use social media in a way that's very different to any other charity or, you know, social organization. Like, you can't put us in, people sometimes try to put us into the box of like, sort of like into an influencer characteristic. And, you know, in some ways that may be true in terms of social media and in terms of actually influence in different, you know, places, both across arts and charity and, you know, more in the social and news world as it is. But for us, it was like really important to not put ourselves into one box and actually to kind of know that actually whenever you have lots of contacts in lots of different places, sometimes that's more effective to get things done.
Fun.
And it's more interesting.
You know,
exactly.
Life, you know, you spend, 2/3 of your life working. So you may as well choose to do something which you really enjoy. And if you enjoy doing one singular thing, brilliant. Knock yourself out. Yeah. You do you. That ain't me, and it ain't you two either. Yeah. And on the subject of influence, I know you, and certainly I quite dislike the word influence, because not everyone who's called or calls themselves an influencer actually has influence. You two do have influence, but you know,
it's official.
Cathy said it, therefore it's true.
But then, you know, not everyone who has influence uses it for good.
Yes, true.
So you know, I have difficulty with that word influencer. So, you know, when I'm talking about that side of my work, I always use the term creator, because some people are brilliant creators, but maybe don't have the reach or the audience to have influence. And then some people are the flip side of that coin. And so it's when you find the perfect balance of both. And then also some people assume that to be a person of influence on social media, you should have a big following, and that's not necessarily true. And I think that's kind of, thankfully, better known now in a wider sense.
Yeah,
I think that's where we kind of sit in terms of that space. You know, we don't have this like massive following, but the people that we've collected over the years in our community are really powerful
and engaged.
They're engaged and they sort of want to get to it, and they're behind us.
So your metrics will be amazing. If I were to kind of dissect your social media metrics, I'm sure, you know, your engagement rate's really high.
Yeah, it's also like it has follow through into the real world, which is kind of the key as well. Exactly. You know, it's like there's a lot of the people that we will be engaging with on social, then we'll actually see here or we'll see at events, and you know, even with things like doing this podcast. You know, we have we have like a free profile in terms of speakers. We don't necessarily get to see a lot of the data that sits behind it. And at first that was really unnerving for us because you want to get into all of the who's listening when and what times and all the rest of it. But actually, because it goes across so many platforms as well, it's not as controllable as social media where you can sort of really
hone in. And,
but then the counter to that is then you get a bit obsessive about it because then you start to think what is effective, what's not, what are people listening to. Whereas the podcast, we just decided to just let it all go, to just not pour over it, just to say what we wanted to say and have that as being the main purpose rather than sort of necessarily analysing it too much. And then what we found was that like because it spread across YouTube and then Spotify and Apple and all the rest of it, people were listening from all different places. So we were finding that the real life people coming up to us and going, oh, listen to the podcast, love it. It was actually like kind of surprising to us because we were like, is anybody hearing it? But it turns out they really are, you know, and that's really nice because we've both got the freedom to talk to who we want to, say what we want to say, but then not also like be in that world of, you know, you hear people on YouTube and things like that. They're like, oh, I can't mention this word and I can't do that and I'm not going to be monetized. We don't care about being monetized. You know, for us, it's an expression of the people in Belfast and what we want to say.
People are here
as well.
for complexity.
The best kind of content is always the most authentic kind of content.
Yes.
So if you're sitting back thinking about the analytics or, you know, the reach, the impressions and all of those things, that will carry through. Consciously or subconsciously in your delivery, it will carry through. If you're really worried about trolls, for example, that will carry through in how you deliver things. You'll be so much more careful in what you say. But the fewer fucks you give and the more fun you have, if fun is your vibe, doing what you want to do and delivering what you want to do, then it comes across so much better. And then I know this is a cliche, but you will find your tribe and they will follow you. And that is, you know, so evident with you guys because you do have a really engaged following, which is growing incrementally. You know, you're not jumping up by, you know, 1,000 or 5,000 followers a day or a week, but that doesn't matter yet, you know. And you know, I remember messaging you not too long ago to say, is it Sam Smith? Was basically creating a space, which to me, when I read it, was exactly like here. And I was like, oh, I think he's maybe, it's out there in the universe or else he's somehow
we're seeing them now.
It's actually part of the legal case.
Have you issued the cease and desist?
We would love to issue one, but we would love to get one. We would really love to get one. I don't know who from, but there's a few people sort of on the agenda. Greg's is one of them. We'll look back in years to come and we'll realise what we did with Greg's. But can you, so rather than getting sort of lost in all the details of your day to day now, sort of getting lost in social, can we rewind the whole way back? Because I've seen loads of like, you've did every magazine, you've did all the papers, you've did all the profiles, all the bits. And I imagine, people are very interested to hear your story and know more about the sort of the enigma that is Cathy Martin, but also it's your job. So if someone reaches out to you and some of your talent isn't free, I imagine you're just like, actually, I'll get you sorted. You're in the paper tomorrow. I'll give you an interview. I'll give you a few pictures. We'll put it down. But often those things are so... They can't delve too deep. You know, you're sitting with like 500 or 1,000 words or whatever. You can't, and it's for the Belfast Telegraph. You can't really tell your story in maybe the way that you would like to, or the way that people would love to hear. But if you were to rewind sort of straight back, can we sort of walk through your life and sort of at least what you want to tell us?
Yeah, I take ages to tell a story, so like we could finish up 1 minute before closing time. And I mean, I have told this story a couple of times before, and I'm like, oh, who wants to hear it? But let's do it. Yeah. So, you know, I grew up on the Lisburn Road in Belfast in a big terraced house, 7 kids. Dad was a builder. We didn't have much money. That's not a sob story nor a flex. Went to St. Bride's Primary School, loved it. But, you know, I was probably I think we've spoken before, and I've said privilege is the spectrum. Mm-hmm. You know, I was the poor kid, or, you know, going to a school in BT9. That didn't matter to me, and I didn't see it or feel it until P7 when a guy, shall remain nameless, said something to me like, oh, your dad's a builder. And I thought, what? Anyway, so I might come back to that because I do think that's probably given me some drive. Anyway, then went on to Rathmore, a school that I absolutely loved. Did really well academically. Have to say, my mum and dad, but mostly my mum, really pushed all of us to, you know, study hard, do our exams, succeed academically, and it really helped all of us. And I'm not saying we're like out of the gutter, but every single one of my family has done really, really well in life. And, you know, I'm really proud of all of them. And I have to be grateful to all of my elder brothers and sister because, you know, they probably helped me. You're buoyed along by what you have at home. A-level revision notes notwithstanding. So went on from there, went to live in France. I was really good at French. So I got a part-time job at 14, worked in a shop. You know, I just wanted money. I wanted independence. So I got a job in a local newsagent's. So I've been working pretty much non-stop, never not earning since I was 14. And always loved that. Money is not my God. I'm not motivated by money, but I love travel. I love being independent, and I love getting out and about. So
security as well.
Yeah, the goal then was to sort of travel. I don't know where I got this travel bug from, but I just wanted to see the big wide world. And you know, at 15, I went over and did a French exchange. The family was from Bordeaux, but they had a place down in Montpellier. So like I was over there, and then I went back the next year, and my French got really fluent very quickly. I did really well at French A level, and then I got a place, only 2 places in Northern Ireland, to go and work in Villeneuve-les-Avignon, just outside Avignon, after A levels and before university, to teach French in a lycée. So it was a bit like your French assistant. I was the English language assistant. But because a lot of French baccalaureate students can repeat a year, some of my A-level equivalent students were older than me. So not in trying to be cool, but you were given some training. So the way I worked with a lot of those guys was through music. So I just chose a lot of English language songs. I remember Luca. My name is Luca. I live on the 2nd floor. Seán. Vega. So we used that a lot. So it brought about conversations around child abuse and stuff, but it was a really easy song for them to learn English from. The vocabulary is very simple. Obviously, it's the voice of a child. So that was one of my favorite lessons. Anyway, brilliant experience there. Stayed on for the summer, came back, went to university, went to Ulster, did European business with French and Italian. I had been offered a place in Queen's to do law with French, but the law was Northern Irish law and the French was probably quite traditional French as well. And at that time, comparing the 2 degrees, you know, Ulster, the course in Ulster was so much more progressive. This was 1992. We were, you know, in the throes of Europe. I was so on it, like a carb on it, and went there, really immersed myself in that. All through this time, I was doing drinks promotions, a bit of kind of modelling or promo modelling on the side for Alison Campbell, who I mentioned earlier. Loved that. Met some great girls who are still among my best friends in the world. Then I think doing all of that on the side was good. And after my degree, I went to France and did, it wasn't a full master's, it was like a postgraduate kind of diploma or inter-university year diploma in international law and economics, and it was in French. So the school was the Sciences Po, it's called. So it's the Institut d'études politiques. So it's political arm of the Aix-Marseille University, and it was a gorgeous old building right in the heart of Aix, and I lived on the main square where the flower market is. So a beautiful experience. Again, lived with a girl who I went to uni with, Maria, who's still one of my best friends. She now lives in Paris. So did that. I remember, you know, the exams in French universities and schools are mostly oral, and they're marked out of 20, not a percentage like we have in the UK and Ireland. And so I remember reciting, you know, the UN Constitution and, you know, human rights and whatever was part of my exam, but I actually did really well. And again, I just delivered in simple enough language, although I was fluent and probably, doing great then and very enthusiastic. And I didn't really have much fear back then, so you just go for it.
Yeah. How old were you then? So you went
I was about 21, 22 maybe.
A baby.
Yeah, so still a baby, yeah, and loved it. Came back, I was on a media training course in the BBC, and then, so I was doing everything. So you're in the newsroom, you're like, you know, making radio packages, splicing the audio radio packages, actually cutting the tape back then before it was digital, and that was really exciting and good fun. And then one day they needed some audience members for auditions that were going on for an RTE show, And myself and the other 8 or 9 students, plus, I mean, literally it was like the cleaners and whoever was about, you know, any spare admin staff or whatever. We went in and sat in this kind of full audience to give a bit of feeling to the room. So John Daly, who I had listened to on Downtown Radio when I was a kid, was auditioning. And John came up to me because we'd known each other. I mean, I phoned into his radio show at 11 and then just kind of kept torturing him for this. So the Weaker Electric radio programme. Anyway.
Was it called Weaker?
Weaker Electric radio program. Yeah.
Cool.
I love
Maybe
John
it
Daly.
wasn't,
I
and
think
I
he's a
pronounced
sweetie.
that all wrongly. No, it was. It was the Weaker Electric. It
Weaker
was
as in
that's Weaker.
Yeah.
That's Weaker, yes. It wasn't like a family, like it wasn't like the Weaker Electric company or anything. It was that is Weaker.
No, I think-
Ah,
Yeah, I think that was it. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have
So
to
he
check
was
with the
auditioning-
Downtown Archive now.
so he was auditioning in that
So
day.
he was auditioning that day, and he came up into the audience to ask the audience members, aka us, what we thought, and it was a food show. So because I'd lived in France and I was really passionate about food, I said, "Oh, I would pan fry that, and I'd add a little bit of roast meat to that, and maybe a little bit of crushed garlic on that." And he was kind of like, "Well," so that
you
was
were
all
going to say
well.
a pink pasty.
What?
You thought you were going to say a pink pasty. You know,
Like Bigfoot.
unexpected.
But I have always been really, really passionate about food and healthy, gorgeous, wholesome food, mostly French, Italian. So anyway, at the end of that session, there were others auditioning and stuff. I literally got the proverbial tap on the shoulder from the producer who said, "Hi, you know, I noticed you were interested in food and whatever. Would you like to audition?" And I was like, "What?" So, oh my gosh, I wish I remembered his name. Jim, something, really tall guy. So I then said yes. And then I ended up auditioning to be one of the food assistants on this TV show, and I got the part. So the show was called Potluck. It was basically a bit like Ready, Steady, Cook, but with a lottery ball of, you know, of numbers which corresponded with ingredients, and then the chefs had to. So it was for RTE, but it was a joint BBC RTE production. So they had me from the north and then another guy from the south as the chef's assistants. And they had chefs on every programme who were competing against one another. And I got to know all the chefs from across Ireland. And, you know, I still know some of them quite well, like Nevin Maguire. He's from down near where my mum's from. I'll loads of them. And even Paul Rankin and stuff. And, like, just had really good crack. So we filmed 50 programmes in 3 weeks in Ardmore Studios in Wicklow. Oh. And meanwhile, so I had to drop out of my media training course in the Beeb. Meanwhile, then I also had applied for a job with Irish Distillers to go and work in France to work to promote Bushmills and Jameson whiskey over in France. So meanwhile, I got the interview with Bushmills and Jameson. It was in Irish Distillers in Dublin. So I went to do that in the middle of filming. Came back, was offered the job with Irish Distillers, but halfway through the interview, they said to me, "Look, we've actually filled the spot in France, but we've got a place in Italy. So I see from your CV that you speak a bit of Italian. So do you mind if we flip the interview into Italian now?" And I was like, "Mamma fucking mia." So I did speak a little bit of Italian, but the total, like, it was just, you know, it was a total test. So my Italian was not as good as my French. But like, it really was pidgin. So I did literally through the skin of my teeth get that job. But there I was thinking I could have gone back to the BBC. And then, you know, I kind of thought, because I'd done this European business, it was focused on marketing and export marketing and stuff. I really liked the law side of things. And then I loved journalism. So, you know, I was all over the place, journalism, law. We now know that all comes together in PR.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's kind of where it led me to. But at that stage, I was like, what do I do? But of course, you're going to go and work in Italy if someone offers you a job in Italy with a car, living in Milan, and then moving to Rome. Like, that is a no-brainer. Yeah. So
you were your job was to sell the Italians Irish whiskey?
Yeah, so this was 1997, right? Uh-huh. So the mid-90s were the time of the explosion of the Irish, bad word, the explosion of Irish bars globally. So,
wow. Wow.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So
Clip
Irish bars grew, you know, in number and volume across the world.
Totally.
And obviously Guinness grew with those, but the whiskies didn't necessarily grow with the same speed and volume. So but they were there. They were present in the Irish bars, but my kind of brief was to bring Irish whiskey out of the Irish bars and put it in the trendy bars. So I was brought over to kind of be the authentic face of Irish whiskey, working with the sales team on the ground in Italy. So I was based in Milan.
Great job.
Amazing job. Like, I mean, this is way before social media, you know, so I didn't even really document it. And I had the time, probably a good thing. Yeah. I had the time of my life living in Italy for 2 years. So I went off and so I arrived in Milan, day 3, they give you a car and I'm like hitting my hand up the side, looking for the steering, looking for the gear stick, you know, it was on the other side. Had about 5 near crashes in the first half hour because you're driving in the middle of Milan.
On the other side of the road.
And this is before sat-nav, before anything. So I'm following an old map, having to pull over every 2 minutes to actually look at a map. And anyway, I got it parked and eventually, you know, this wee Fiat Punto was my dream. It took me all over Italy. I absolutely loved it. I was driving on the motorways. I mean... it was kind of my first car, really. So I lived in Italy for 2 years, had the time of my life. I was in probably all the best restaurants and bars, definitely in Milan and then in Rome. And it was marketing, but I guess it was more like the experiential side of marketing. So setting up drinks promotions. It was all about sampling, tasting. You know, you guys have been there. It's getting product into people's hands and down their throats, really. And then Irish whiskey. Like people would say, you know, oh, it's an Irish Scotch, and you're like,
yeah, almost.
So there was an education piece there as well, where you know Irish whiskey is distilled 3 times, Scotch only twice, bourbon only once. So Irish whiskey is the smoothest. So we didn't say it out loud, but you know, it's nicer and softer and smoother to drink. Because it's distilled 3 times, there are fewer impurities, therefore a bit less of a hangover. But we didn't really market that either. But you know, and it is a gorgeous product. You know, my dad was a big fan of Blackbush. Don't make any smirks about that, but he was a big fan of Blackbush.
It's a bush of colour now.
Yeah.
Actually, Cathy, you got to get with it.
I think the label's actually purple, or it did go purple under my rainbow.
Is Blackbush like the fancy bush?
It's a slightly more premium
one,
but it's also...
well, it's still a blended whiskey. Like, it's not... There are single malts, which are better.
Yeah.
I mean, the whiskey is a whole, you know, it's a whole thing. It's a whole vibe on its own. So, but Blackbush was a particular blend.
And he would have drank that?
Yeah. So...
Your daddy would have drank that?
Yeah. He would have had a wee chaser after his Guinness. He'd like a pint of Guinness in 4 in hand on a Friday night and then a wee whiskey afterwards. There you go.
Once you go Blackbush, you don't go backbush.
Yeah, that almost worked.
In fairness, that was one of my favourites as well. Was Blackbush. There's a sort of slightly sweeter taste to it, I think, as well. But it's like wine, you know, like people will say, oh, like I like a Cabernet Sauvignon. And it's like, that's like a single grape. But then there's like an art to the blend at the same time, you know. So there's this whole like conversation happening in the alcohol world over whether a single is better than a blend, because it sort of depends what camp you come from. It's an interesting world.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, the alcohol industry as a whole is really fascinating. You know, how things are brewed, how things are distilled, how there are, oh my gosh, what's the word, Becky? You'll help me. You know, in the barrels. What's the word? Aged. How they're aged.
Yeah.
You know, that can all affect the taste and everything else. And Irish whiskey, the barley from Irish whiskey is heated in a closed kiln, which is an oven. So, but Scotch is in an open kiln, which means the flames go at it. So Scotch whiskey has a smoky smell.
Yeah.
Whereas Irish doesn't. So,
some of the, like I remember my ex-husband used to really like Lefroy. And it's so smoky that even if he had drank it like an hour ago, I couldn't actually go anywhere near him because the smell of it was just too intense for me. Like I much more preferred the Irish whiskey side of things as well. But even it's all about the serve. It's about the ritual. It's about like, you know, even with beer as well. Thinking when you with Guinness, my goodness, there was like the 5 C's, all about how it's being presented. You know, you've been with me in a bar when I've seen people like putting the nozzle into the beer and I'm going in the background. Do you know, it's like there's so even like people doing their shamrocks and all the rest on it. That's actually like a real like no. You know, you should never put a nozzle that's been exposed to the air into the beer.
Oh, is that how you make the shamrock? Is you sort of shove it in?
Yeah, exactly. But it's like there's real lore and legacy with a lot of these brands as well, but particularly whiskey, people get very, very emotionally attached to these brands. So it's quite a big responsibility to be doing that, to represent those brands in another country.
So, but while I was there, then Jameson, nothing to do with me directly, potentially some wee tiny part of it, but Jameson did then become the fastest growing spirit in the world in around 1997, 98 or so. I mean, I personally would have believed that Bushmills as a family would have been a better whiskey to promote internationally because there's so much more history. Yeah. There's just so much more to the brand. It's a meatier brand, and it's also, in my opinion, a better product. But Irish distillers had better facilities for making Jameson en masse down in Cork and Middleton and in Dublin. So that was the brand that they chose to push forward. Irish Distillers is owned by Pernod Ricard, big global PLC, or not even PLC. Anyway, so they that was it. But anyway, back to Italy. I had a great time. It was amazing. My Italian became fluent as well very quickly. Actually, I ended up getting a boyfriend and who was Sicilian. So he was
in the mafia. Was he? Did you have a mafia? So you actually had had multiple.
A mob wife.
You've been You've been with multiple hoods. We'll get to the local hoods soon. But
yeah, so he was Sicilian. Focoso is a word that was used about, he's quite fat. Focoso means fiery, and they say Southern men are a bit more fiery, but both the good sense and the crappy sense too. Yeah. So that was my first taste of someone being quite possessive and, and he, because I'm Irish and, I don't really drink so much anymore, but I did then. And he thought it was really vulgar. The British and Irish girls and Australian girls and American girls, we would have all met up in Milan and to go out for drinks, and he thought this was vulgar.
Right.
He was quite traditional like that. And anyway, there was no talking to him.
Did he drink?
Yes, of course he did. The most misogynistic men who have these opinions about women do all the things that they say you shouldn't. So yes, he was one of those. But very handsome. He was called Massimiliano. So yeah, he was.
There's something about, I don't know, I suppose we don't really have the top pick of men on this island. Yeah. I think you see the odd kind of, whatever, like the sort of the idealized sort of image of mostly Irish
like
man.
Almeny.
Yes.
Almeny, one of the perfect Irish men.
But just, actually real rugged, kind of North Coasty, kind of drinking whiskey and surfing.
But very quickly that can turn into big Irish head.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
There's something, maybe that's why people view Irish people, in other places. I've been places where people will they don't need to know anything else, but you've got an Irish accent.
Yeah.
And they're like, they just want to be your husband.
Yeah.
Or they just want to be your wife or whatever. It's just straight on it.
Yeah.
But
people say to me all the time, I love your accent, and I'm like, it's so broad. Yeah. But then,
do you think you've got a broad accent?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean that's relative. But
I think it's you've got an accent of the country rather than necessarily of the city. Yeah, because I've had that same thing as well.
I would say both our accents are probably quite neutral, and when you go away to live abroad, especially, your accent definitely neutralizes. So,
totally.
I will say cake and ate and not cake and ate. And, that's okay. Either way is fine. And we can slip in and out of our old Belfast.
I have a personal problem with 8.
Same. But having said that,
no, but I said when I was abroad, no one would have understood me if I hadn't said it.
Yes.
It was really funny, the differences in Connor and I, from both having lived away for a long time and come back again, and we were talking about those times when you have to kind of neutralize your accent further, and I'd be talking about doing a video call for Diageo, and I'd be talking to 10 or 15 different countries, so you have to really, and it'd be a video call in a business context, so I'd be saying our, or I'd be saying, we're going to go into a breakout room, and having to really soften it that way. And Connor's examples of that were words like whale, cloud. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know Valentina actually used to say, and I think this is more Peppa Pig's influence than anything else, she'd say, "Can I have a towel, mummy?" And she would say cake, but that's pure Peppa Pig when she was 4 or 5 years old.
So we're actually, I don't know if you know, but we're actually close personal friends with Lizzo. We like to mention it on every podcast. Yes.
Love Lizzo.
So
that was Valentina's first concert.
She's a star. I know all the recent sort of dramas went on, but sure,
I reckon there's we have a bit of a raised eyebrow with that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
12-hour rehearsals are very standard. And anyway,
Like,
we'll not go into the
we
thing.
won this prize on a TV show, and now she's making us do the work.
I know.
So, yes.
I know. What do you expect?
Yeah.
It is, you're working at the highest level.
professional
But
standard.
anyways, it's because we're close personal friends that
Yeah.
we defend her in that way. But anyways, when we were assistant dresser for Balsonic, it was a really good experience. But one of the things, we came sort of as like a sewing making team, and I'm good at I'll wear the measuring tape, I'll have a wee pin belt, I'll have some tools.
Can't do anything with
But
any of it, like.
Thumbelina.
Yeah.
Zero
All
skills.
props.
But
But we'll be the gay in the room that
Yeah.
is needed to kind of I
can bring it together. I can
assist.
juice it. I can steam it. I can have the crack. We can bring the energy up. We can sort of.
But you're also good in a crisis where you're just right, okay, that doesn't work. I'm going to do this.
Yes, very
Exactly.
that. But one of the things, just in generally trying to, one, help, but two, also get close to her sort of lead designer and her producer for the show, because I wanted on that stage and knew that there was a stage band and I didn't have one and I wanted one, so I was going to be their best friend. And it's one of those things of just trying to assist them and help them. They sent me off to get towels, towels. And I then give them a couple of updates to say find the towels, and they were looking at me like, what? So they're coming in 5 minutes, and then when something, I give them another update, and then they didn't come, and then when they eventually came, they were like, "Oh, we thought you were saying tiles, but we just thought you were quite nice, so we didn't." We were like, "Whatever," they're trying their best, I was like, "Oh yes, towel."
The classic Northern Irish accent sentence, which is, I'm going for a power shower in an hour, and I'm going to dry myself with a towel while looking in the mirror.
Really cake.
Do we say cake? Oh, cake.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too much for me.
Paddy Kilty used to do this thing in his stand-up show, and it was about meeting all the posh girls in London, and he talked about Diet Coke, and he said Diet Cake, and he said Diet Coke, they pronounce it like cake. He said Diet Cake, and I can't remember the gist of
You can hear it though. You can hear the sort of
So I don't remember the gist of the storyline, but this was part of his stand-up routine. He would talk about the posh girls in London, Diet
Yes.
Cake. And it was really funny, and he obviously delivers it way better than I ever could. But
I'm sure it was very funny. So next, I'm only joking.
But anyway, we move.
So moving on from your boy, was that really one of your, not that I don't know, you've had many experiences of terrible men, I guess because you are a woman, you have.
Yeah.
But was that maybe one of the first times where you sort of just where your bubble was popped a wee bit?
Well, my first boyfriend was when I was 18, Andrew, and he's a lovely guy and very happily married with loads of kids. And actually, his wife, I know, and they're brilliant people. And so I went out with him for about 4 years or whatever. He is a really nice guy. He was a fireman. He was an identical twin. Really, really nice. So I had a lovely first boyfriend experience.
Yes.
And then Massimo was probably the next, and then. Oh no, I went out with a guy called Stephen as well after uni. He was a nice guy too. And then Massimo, and then a lovely guy called Hal. Actually, they were mostly really good and really nice. And then, I don't know whether I'll not name names, but I have had a couple of shitty experiences. One of whom is kind of worse than Massimo in terms of. Abuse, verbal and other abuse, and then another one whose form of torture was to shag prostitutes behind my back. So that was nice.
Special.
Anyway, so we'll not necessarily go there. Let's go back to Italy.
I thought we weren't allowed to talk about shagging prostitutes. Who told us
Check the list again,
watching?
Connor. Check the list.
She won't watch this episode.
Very 18 plus anyway.
I said it at 11:11, so maybe that's a good or bad thing. Anyway, so after Italy, then I came home and worked for Irish Distillers again in Northern Ireland. So we're at the year 2000 here, and we were launching Bushmills Millennium Whiskey. So that was a really exciting time. So that was my project. And then once that was done, I moved from Irish Whiskey to Irish Linen. So I worked for the Irish Linen Guild, which is the equivalent of kind of Woolmark. That's how I best describe it. And that was kind of an association of all of the weavers, dyers, finishers, spinners, and whatever of linen products. So again, loads of travel with that. I got to use my French and my Italian. And that was another amazing job. But and at that time also linen, it was around 2002-3, linen kind of reached its peak. It's a very cyclical product. So it's around again now in terms of sort of overall trends. But around that time, it was really, really big. And then so in 2004 or so, then 2004-5, I left that job, and that's when I started my own business. So, but when working with Irish Linen, that really helped me develop my love for fashion, which had always just been kind of on the side or whatever. But at that point, I was able to work with designers from like Yamamoto, Yuji Yamamoto in Japan, Betty Jackson, Nicole Farry, Paul Costello, Paul Smith, all of those brilliant people, as well as your M&S and Next. And, I forged a relationship with Next then, and then they became one of my clients in CMPR. And, I missed working with them this year, but I did an event for them last year, which was really successful here. So, I'm all about connections. I love connections and networking. And to me, I thrive in that environment and getting the right people together to do the right project or job. So, so that was really good. That was a really good life experience. And then after that, I did look for a job locally and for a little while, and I wasn't really sure. But there were no jobs where I thought that I would be able to use the kind of weird and wonderful experience that I'd had. So,
what were you looking for a job in then? In PR?
In marketing, advertising, PR.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, you're kind of not limited in Northern Ireland. There weren't that many. There were the ad agencies out in Hollywood mostly, and all brilliant and whatever, but I just didn't really fit in. You quickly become an account manager with a sort of focused set of goals, and that just wasn't really me at that time. So I had done a project with Terry Bradley at the end of my kind of linen job, and then Terry asked me to promote a show for him, which I did kind of on the side. But then by the time the show came around, I left my job in Irish Linen. So that was my first thing. So,
great.
I think I got 500 quid and a pair of jeans that Terry painted as my payment, which was brilliant. But I don't think I had a boyfriend at the time. I had no rich parents. I had nothing in case it all went tits up. So, but I did have about $5,000 worth of credit on a credit card, because that was the time of loads of credit. So that was kind of my leap of faith. And then that event went really, really well. And then after that, I started to do another couple of events. But around the same time then is when I started Fashion Week. So 2005 was my first Fashion Week. And
was it Grand Opera House?
No, it was the Pot House, actually. So
The Pot House.
Oh, the Pot House.
Yeah, so our models walked to, and I know you came to the Grand Opera House one. I think that was around 2007 or 8 or so. But the Pot House, the models walked on what was the glass kind of dance floor, so people on the floor below could actually see. So I remember we hired in these kind of wooden blocks as our audience kind of seats, and it was a $5 a head in. I didn't know how popular or not it was going to be, but thankfully it was really popular. And at that time when I went out to do the sell, if you like, to the retailers, there were a lot of, especially the local independent retailers, would have pushed back a bit to say, no, why would I get on a stage with my competitor down the road? And one in particular was Dave Pennick, who owned Carter back then, and Dave's just passed away, God rest his soul, a really brilliant guy. Again, another brilliant mentor for me. But he did push back initially. And I said, look, whilst you might think you'll lose some of your customers to potentially buy off a competitor, you might gain some. So it was that, my whole ethos was that Aristotle, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. Is that right?
Yeah.
God, I always
the whole
get that.
is greater than
Some of the parts.
Yes,
That's it.
yes.
Becky does all of our quotes.
I know.
I fuck up every single one.
But we use that one a lot.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's so true. You are better together.
Yeah.
None of those independent retailers would have had the budget to do a PR campaign on their own. But together,
Yes.
we were able to create a show, harness all of the excitement around the event, and then, gather photography, all those picture, and we didn't know it yet, but video assets, they all really, really helped. And, they gave content for all the magazines and newspapers, because I don't want to sound arrogant, but there wasn't really much else going on in that sphere at the time. So people were hungry for that kind of colour. And, anyway, that really worked and progressed. And, I actually did 29 really successful seasons of Fashion Week. So, my last one was in 2019. 29 seasons. So about 15, I think it was 15 years. So my last one was in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting on show 29 and the, I don't want to misdiagnose, but the slightly ADHD in me needs that to be a round number. So I will, and I know you said that you're going to ask me about Fashion Week. So, here's me giving the answer before you ask it. So I do want to do a 30th season. I just don't know what that's going to look like. And again, because it became a big celebration of fast fashion for the most part. And whilst I talked about independent retailers and whilst we supported local designers and whilst we supported things like Junk Couture and other people, and the students and using lots of sustainable fashion practices, and that's where I was going to at the end, you're at this kind of juxtaposition where it's like, right, do I really, work with all of it? Because it was, it was boohoo and all the kind of naughty retailers mixed in with all the good ones. So we have to think about where everyone's going to sit. And I'm not going to lie, I am not perfect when it comes to sustainable fashion. I don't think any of us are. I still love fashion.
I don't think there's such a thing.
Well, we're all consumers and, no one is perfect until we don't consume it all, which won't happen. So, whilst I am loving the seagulls.
There's a family, there's babies on the roof, you
say.
So
you have a baby on my roof and I'm a seagull.
That's right. Yes, I saw that.
Well, we did get just as a little sidebar on the seagulls, we got a hawk to put on the roof to stop them from nesting because we need to get onto the roof to do our roof because it's glass and we need to clean it.
Yeah.
We're just sort of reliant on the rain right now. But so we got the hawk and I love the hawk. So I spray painted it and put a little balaclava on. In fact, Beth that works here put a little balaclava on, and we suspend him for our church service, which is called it's like a church but without God.
No, the Holy Hawk. So the Holy Hawk is now like a piece of performance art.
So he now floats above the audience to the sounds of Enya. Okay. So because we used him for performance, the seagulls came and landed, and they have multiple babies up there, and they're very aggressive. So
a baby seagull has come off a roof near me, and there is and she ended up in my next door neighbour's garden, she or he. And so the little bird is there, but they're not that little, even when they're babies. So but they're just very fluffy and obviously vulnerable. So of course I called the RSPB, the RSPCA, everyone's like, just leave them alone, let nature do its thing. But the seagull mummy or daddy, because I think both parents guard them from my research anyway, the seagull mum or dad was swooping down on any human that was going near the bird, and the bird was lying on these grey stones. So he was actually quite camouflaged. Anyway, so unbeknownst to passerbys, they were getting swooped down upon by this parent seagull. And, actually, I don't know whether I have a bit of Dr. Dolittle in me or not, but I was aware that this was happening. So I kind of kept my distance. But, all the advice was don't feed it, don't encourage it, don't whatever. But the thing was chirping up and looking up for its mum. So, of course, I became a seagull mum and fed it some M&S fish. So
M&S fish.
It's not just any seagull food. This is M&S seagull food.
I laugh at Gemma Garrett who feeds her dog M&S steak, and now I have become the person.
Sorry, Gemma Garrett specifically feeds her dog M&S steak. It has to be M&S.
Well, I don't know whether it specifically has to be, but I've seen the packaging a few times in her stories.
She only feeds her dog steak. Mm-hmm. That is so fancy.
No, she feeds it steak and boiled eggs, which she mashes up. And, that
Does
dog...
she have this... She has this little sort of pug, like a little...
No, it's not a pug. It's a British bulldog.
Oh, yes. Sorry, not a pug.
So a bit bigger, but similar family. But anyway, that dog is so loved.
Yeah.
And,
so you were feeding the seagull.
Yeah, so now back to... I'm feeding the seagull. And so I have an affiliation for seagulls now. I'm a gull mum. So, I just love animals so much. I love all animals, and when I get my house in France, I think I will be like Brigitte Bardot with
gorgeous.
All the animals.
That's a nice dream.
For the most part, they're probably better than some humans.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So and the more and more I read and experience animals in nature, the more I think they're kinder than humans. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So yeah, right. Well, I think we finished the gold story. Where were we? We were back. We were Fashion Week.
We can stitch on.
Yeah. So Fashion Week, basically, I'm at season 29. So the big question is, do I do it again? The problem is that people only see your events from the outside looking in. They don't realise how much work there is. And there is a monumental amount of work. You've been there behind the scenes, Connor. It's a monumental amount of work. It takes a huge number of people and a lot of effort, and not just human resource, but also financial resource. So until I can get, and I haven't even gone looking. So, if I get a cool sponsor, that will help me cover the costs of the venue hire and the tech, the sound and light is the biggest thing. And, I don't want to do anything by half. So, go big or go home. Yeah. So if I get that, then I will do another one. And then we can work out positioning and who's going to be in and what. For now, though, I've just, dipped my toe back in the water with some of our Style Sunday lunches. And then we obviously did a Style Sunday resale, edition. And that worked really well as well. So, I don't want to lose Fashion Week entirely. There is a place for it. But if you look at some of the big brands, they're not necessarily doing catwalk how they used to do catwalk. It's experiential. They're investing a lot of their money into social media, into video, film and stuff like that. Fashion rotates so much quicker. So it's not necessarily a 2-season thing. There's new drops every week with a lot of brands, not just the high street fast fashion ones, but also the big global brands are dropping much more often. So doing 2 shows a year doesn't necessarily work for them either. So if I do my 30th Fashion Week, it will be a celebration of fashion, but not in that context. So we've always made Belfast Fashion Week a consumer-friendly show. So if you see something in the show today, you can go and buy it tomorrow if you want. That is kind of where I want to be. I want to continue that to make it available and a bit more, democratic and, available. Yeah, but it's just finding how that's going to work in the future. In the meantime, obviously, I've also done lots of other things. So, my PR company was thriving from 2005 right through. But, I had a dip in 2020 when the pandemic came along. Yeah. I had to homeschool Valentina by myself. I was living at home. I was doing bits and pieces of work, but I was not strung out. I was just pulled in so many directions, trying to be a good parent to Valentina. I never took any maternity leave when I had her, nor when I had her little sister, Rosie, who died. She was stillborn. So, I never really took time out after that. So I kind of thought, right, well, this is a time for me to actually chill. I was living by the beach. I was on that beach every day. I was walking my neighbour's dog, Rua, who became almost mine. So I kind of wanted to embrace the good side of the pandemic, but the flip side of that coin was I'd no income really, and I had a big mortgage, and I'll never forget there were a couple of friends who at that time came and gave me literally, you're going to laugh, but £50 Marks and Spencer vouchers each, right? Sorry.
They're dermatologica, just like, Cathy, really? Like, you don't want to be getting cracked, babe. I know you're skint, but we got you some exfoliator.
Well, that's the thing, I was still getting gifted beauty products and whatever, and I could have been like,
but they're not going to pay your everything else. Yeah,
but you still have to pay the bills and
100%.
feed the kids, and I had Valentina's big brother and sisters come and stay for a little while as well, and so that wasn't easy. I'm not saying poor me, and I know I don't need to caveat this, but there are much worse off people, but but that was a shitty time. Financially, it was really stressy, but it was also a lovely time. So I can see the balance of both. But anyway, at that time, I kind of had a proper think about, what I wanted to do and what I wanted to do work-wise and whatever. And afterwards, I guess it was a natural kind of progression more into social media, creator and influencer marketing, digital marketing and stuff like that. And I'm really thankful that since that time, I've got some brilliant clients who have stuck with me, through thick and thin. I love working with, and this isn't a name drop for promotional purposes. This is just because, so I've been working with Castle Court Shopping Centre for years and I love them, and they really embraced social media and creators and stuff for a long time. And what I love about them is that they know who they are. So they don't pick the top performing kind of fashion creators and whatever who've got big followings and are all chic and bougie. They pick the people who work for their customers, and that's what I love about Castle Court.
Wow, that's very exciting, Cathy Martin. Wow, that is very exciting what you were just saying there.
Cathy just told the dirtiest joke there. There, honestly.
No, but you were saying about the clients that you work with and the job that you were doing. You've been privileged to work with tons of people through the years. Who sort of, in terms of your memory, your legacy, your career, who were those people and what were those moments? You know, beyond your own events and your own sort of bits. Who were those people that were really exciting, or those real sort of, because we would sometimes have those moments where we sort of pinch each other and we go, oh my God, can you believe this is our life? You know, can you think of those moments, you know?
I've had some really brilliant moments. You know, I did the opening of Victoria Square in 2008. So,
that was you?
Yasmin Le Bon and stuff. Yeah.
The fallen confetti and the...
Well, I didn't do that event part particularly. I was in charge of the sort of consumer PR around it. So we did Yasmin Le Bon. We named, you know, the big kind of statue and inside what's now Flannels or Fraser's or whatever. So I named her Belle, the Belle of Belfast or whatever. That was my idea. Not that it's particularly original, you know, but I can't remember the name they wanted to call her. And I was like, look, just call her Belle. It's, you know, we're going into Beauty Hall, it's Belfast, whatever. So that was really exciting. And at the time when the guys were pitching to do the marketing, I went to university in Chicago for a little while, forgot about that. But when I was
everywhere.
So I went to Northwestern and I went to the Kellogg School of Management. It's sort of like up there with Harvard and stuff. So there's a guy called Philip Kotler who wrote the book on marketing. So he was actually my lecturer.
I recognise that name.
Yeah. So Philip Kotler is like the god of marketing. So he taught me when I went out to the Kellogg School of Marketing, and as part of that course in the Kellogg School, I went to work in Marshall Fields, which was a big department store in Chicago. And it was their 100th anniversary or something. I can't remember what year it was. But anyway, they had a vertical fashion show, which was basically German hired abseilers coming down the front of the building, but wearing Armani and whatever. So this made Good Morning America, you know, it was a really brilliant kind of...
It was a moment.
It was a moment. It was a PR stunt. But anyway, so when then a few years later, I was, you know, doing some pitches for the opening of Victoria Square, one of the concepts I had was to bring these abseilers down from the Dome, because the Dome was a big thing, and it was going to change the landscape of Belfast. It was supposed to reflect the City Hall Dome. You know, the walkway through was supposed to have a bit of a streetscape theme and whatever, but we knew there were going to be loads of people on the ground, so fashion show wouldn't have been relevant. It would have been too long, boring, because not everybody there was into fashion. People were there for construction reasons, whatever. So I wanted them to do the vertical fashion show, and we didn't do it for either budgetary or insurance or a number of reasons.
I love that idea though.
So it's still here. I mean, maybe we do it down the front of Greenhouse.
We've just been told that our beam across the top we can swing a human from, as long as it's not snowing. Because apparently that's a snow beam. So we had Karen McShane, who's a structural engineer, said, yeah, that's safe for a human, so we can hang humans off that. If you want to,
okay.
You know, a thing where maybe they step out and they float down, and then they're just sort of like Kylie style detached, and then they walk around the building. Yeah. We get on in this place like we have a massive budget and this like ginormous building.
Because, you know, my theory used to always be, you know, find a solution to every problem, or find ways of doing what you want to do.
Yes.
And I think when you set, you know, your goal somewhere in the distance, doesn't have to be too far away, it can be quite close. If you get the right people together, you 100%. Can usually forge ideas and forge your creativity and harness everybody's talents and resources and make that happen.
Totally.
It might not be in the big budget flipping Chanel in the Grand Palais in Paris kind of way, but it could still happen.
I was searching for that name in my head, because that's the way we get on. We get on as if we are in the Grand Palais, that we are that Chanel show. I'm like, can we not have a rocket take off?
Yeah.
You know, can we not have an experiential supermarket feeling thing here? You know,
like I one time wanted to have a runway of like, it was when I think it was when TransLink just introduced metro buses, the pink ones. So I wanted to have a runway of models going across 3 consecutive double-decker buses, and I wanted them to come, but film it with City Hall in the background.
Yes.
So whilst it was going to be an outdoor, like, piece of fashion theatre, it was also a bit of a stunt, but mostly a filming opportunity, and that never came off because, you know, I mean, once you get big, massive companies like TransLink and City Council and whatever involved, it becomes a bit more cumbersome to pull off.
Yeah.
So that didn't ever happen. But, you know, I had those grand ideas a lot and still do.
Yeah.
And, you know, it doesn't mean that they won't happen in future, you know. But
there's something just about, though, like, and I think that's one of our sort of strengths as well, is being super creative but also having a bit of a commercial you know, way of thinking of it as well, and it kind of gives you this like hustle and this resilience and the ability to be, and it's also, as you said at the very, very beginning of chatting there, like the builder comment, it kind of gives you a, I'll show you, I can do it, you know, and it gives you this opportunity to kind of overcome. And I think that's a really important thing for people to kind of hear as well, that it doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have been to art school, you don't necessarily have had to know how to paint to be really creative. And actually that creativity and problem solving is something that people, I think, struggle to put together, but like that's a perfect example of it.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know, one of the great things about being slash this and slash that and slash the other, you know, you actually end up having this amazing alchemy, and you know, so you might be really good at marketing, have a little bit of legal background, but also, you know, like have writing skills or whatever.
Yes.
And then when you bring those together and harness a little bit of this and a big bit of that, you know, you're literally, you know, a witch's cauldron and a melting pot. Yeah. You mix those together, bring in some other people, and then all of a sudden wonderful things happen. So I've always been a fan of cooperation and collaboration over competition. And I guess, you know, potentially to my detriment in some way, because you know, that might have meant that commercially I might not have succeeded as much as I could have or should have. But like I said before, and I don't want to say this in an altruistic way, but money is not my God. You know, I feel better. My success to me looks and feels like, you know, a job well done.
Yeah.
You
totally.
know, and people feeling good and me feeling good having done whatever I do. And I just think that, you know, long may that continue and well into the retirement that I will not take.
Yeah,
totally.
Good.
Totally. It's sort of but you're gathering all of that experience over the years. You know, if it's in France or in Italy or doing whatever jobs you were doing and then moving into your CMPR side of things. It's then when you stand and you're putting together a show for your first few Fashion Week seasons, you sort of before you know it have the skills there and the experience, but also that kind of special
secret sauce.
Yes. Of that special ability to kind of piece it, you know, to
big
pull
picture
on
thinking as well, but yet being able to get into the minutiae of the details.
Oh, I mean, like former staff will tell you that I really got down to the nitty gritty, probably not in a good way, but you know what? I'm a real attention to details person. Yeah. So
that's why they call you the Anna Wintour of the North.
But I do think that the detail can be really important. Yes, you can be big picture, but I don't let shitty grammar go, you know, and
it's building trust.
Yeah. Melissa Riddell, who I now work with, interned with me at one point, and she'd say, you know, if she said has went instead of has gone, or, you know, something like that. And I would, she said it was almost like a passive aggressive email back with the corrected version of the sentence. And I'd be like, oh, do you mean passive aggressive in a mean way? And she said, no. She said it was just, you didn't want to say it directly, although sometimes I did. But, you know, I laugh because some of my former team members who are now working internationally will say to me, I'm really glad you did that. I'm really glad you stuck on me with the grammar and the whatever. Yeah. You know,
it's really important, even tone, you know, as well. Like we have an amazing team and they work really, really hard, but at the same time, we work them really, really hard, and we are very exacting about our standards. And sometimes I know we come across as probably mental cases because we'll really focus in on certain details, even in the tone of an email. You know, it's like our tone is this, you know, but that's really important because that's then arming people for, you know, the
big
rest
world.
of exactly. And I think that's really important.
Like you can get a reputation for being a bitch or mean or whatever, but I'm just direct. So I would always choose to say something to 100%. Someone's face. I don't believe in gossip. I don't believe in like idle chit chat. It just bores me really. And that's why, you know, I don't really give airtime to nasty people online. I just you know, I usually, and like, they're probably going through their own shit, and that's why they're projecting and whatever. And that's okay. Park that, because thankfully that's not my world. So I just keep my head down, keep going and do what I do. And I like to try and not train, but I like to try and encourage that with the people I work with. And I think as well as a mum, I like to pass that knowledge, experience and way of living to my daughter as well. And I think through some kind of osmosis, she has picked a lot of it up. Yeah. You know, she's a good kid, and, you know, she's like 12 and a half or whatever. I'm about to face 4 or 5 years of teenage hell potentially, but so far so good.
Yeah. She already has a sort of very, because we met at a lyric thing, and she already has this sort of energy about her, this sort of like, she's sort of, it's funny because she's a baby, but she sort of already seems like she knows herself. Yeah. You know, that kind of way. It's kind of powerfulness. Sometimes there is a powerfulness.
She's got a really good inner confidence. Yeah. And I don't know whether that comes from her dance and her dance success, or, you know, let's not forget again, being a single mom, she was with me at lots of work events from very early on. And at about 5 years old, she said to me, "Mummy, why do all these people know my name?" Yeah. And she'd no clue, obviously, that God love her.
It's because you've already been featured in every glossy on the fucking island.
There's an Instagram account set up for you.
It's because you're selling Prada dummies. No, money chicken.
And actually, we're at the age now. Let's touch on that. We're at the age now. She's 12, so, you know, I do offer her consent. Do you want to be in a video? Mostly now it's no. So, you know, and I have to respect that. And then we will get to an age and a stage where it'll be, are you happy with what's out there? You know, if there are bad people out there, whatever, they could potentially have used some of those pictures in the malicious way that people do, which is a big fear for kids in the future. Yeah. But, you know, I'm coming from a good place, you know, and she has been involved in a couple under 5 things which have earned money. So she was in an ad for a big jewellery brand, and then she did a thing for a retail brand as well, a clothing retail brand. But she got paid for those. But I put them into her account. So I, you know, helped her to understand that she's earned money by doing this. Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know for now. And then it was for us. And, you know, what I'd like to teach her is entrepreneur kind of skills and the value of things. You know, she doesn't get given loads of stuff. I gift Valentina experiences. And to me, that works better.
Yeah. Totally. And just have the experience of having you as her mummy. Yeah. You know, like you're saying about sort of having her and then getting straight back to work. I remember you having her, which sort of makes me feel very old saying that. But I remember you having her and then arriving into the next season of Fashion Week with her. Yeah. You know, I remember that.
She was kind of minus a week when she came to that fashion. Yeah. You know, when you think, because she was born so early. And, you know, I went into labour and I was over 8 weeks. I was 8 weeks and a couple of days. She was premature. So I was put in an ambulance, you know, to Dublin. There were no incubators left in the north at all. None in like Altnagelvin, Craigavon, Belfast. And in a way that was a good thing, because Pseudomonas virus came out in the Royal, and it affected the most delicate wee babies, of which she would have been one at the time, and I'd already had a stillbirth. So, you know, it's one of those expressions, you know, you don't know what worse luck your bad luck has saved you from. Totally. So she, you know, we were ambulance to Dublin. She was born in Hollis Street. So, you know, I always tell her she made a very dramatic entrance into the world, and that must continue. So, and
then you're straight back to it.
Yeah, and I did. I was on a conference call after she was born, and I didn't even tell. It was Coca-Cola, and I didn't even tell them that I just had a baby, because I was sort of embarrassed, and I don't know why I was embarrassed, but I was just like,
the world is shit to women, basically, you know, and sad as it is, like it could have been potentially, like, nowadays it wouldn't be, but even 10 years ago it was a very, very different world, you know.
It's protecting yourself against, you know, something goes wrong with that Coke project, that the Coca-Cola project, that they don't then blame that on your hormones, or it's you know, you're hard to work with because you just don't have time, or whatever, insert whatever other misogynistic bullshit
and
that
actually,
goes
you know,
around there.
Fair play to them. As soon as they found out, they were like, get the frig home to your baby, you know, because it was females, you know. But I chose not to tell them at the time. I think I was just coming to terms with it, because when Valentina was born, she had to go straight into an incubator. So we got about 10 seconds of skin on skin, and then she was taken off me and put into an incubator. But because I just had a stillbirth the year before, my first thought wasn't, oh, she's amazing. My first thought was, is she dead or is she alive? And, you know, it wasn't morbid, but it was just, I need to protect myself. It was a matter-of-fact question I was asking myself. I don't think I said those words out loud, but that's kind of what I thought. And it was just protecting me from, is it going to happen again?
Yeah.
So, I mean, she is a great kid. I hope that, you know, she takes all of the life experiences that I've given her and she's had herself. And, you know, a great family around her and stuff. I hope she takes them into her sort of teenage years and on.
Gorgeous. Well, that having one sort of junior
really,
show
it's
and tell
like
some love.
move over the BBC Breakfast Show. We are on fire. Like,
But it's a beautiful segue because, like, I suppose Valentina is your ultimate, you know, show and tell some love because she's, you know, the.
we thought you would jump out of a box.
I know.
No, she said, let's go, Hydra.
But from that, we should ask you now to give us your item for our little show and tell some
I've
love
got
segment.
a couple. Is it okay to do a couple?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to push the chair back.
Seán will get home at some stage.
I know, sorry, Seán. I did tell you I take ages to tell a story.
This is like when Chatty Cathy's met the chattiest Cathys. So, you know.
My friend Ian nicknamed me Rogues and Brogues. I don't know whether you know him, but Ian nicknamed me Cathy Martin. So when I actually have caffeine, this is why I don't need alcohol or anything else because I'm so high. So first off, this is Susie. Susie's been my teddy since I was a baby, but I think the representation I wanted to show is that she's not perfect. She's a wee bit damaged. She's a wee bit chunky. But she's lovely. She to me represents family, comfort, safety, but also loyalty because she's been by my side. I don't cuddle her in bed, not like that. But she's always somewhere in the house. She's sort of an ornament on my sofa in my office space. So she represents kind of loyalty. She's classic, you know, black and white as well. And I do love her. So that's what she represents. So I'll just set her down.
This is your. Can we touch her?
Yeah, of course you can.
What's her name again?
Susie.
Susie is gorgeous.
She's 51 years old.
Before you whip out your next bit, I love that when you're describing Susie, you say she's a bit lumpy. She's a bit sort of, what did you say? She's a bit sort of...
But I don't know what I said.
Oh, I don't know either. But she's
imperfect.
Isn't she? She isn't perfect, but she's gorgeous. Yeah. Like even those wee eyes.
I think I cut her those eyebrows. See the way the eyebrows are kind of... There's a bit of a dent. I think I shaved those in or something.
Oh my God, she's gorgeous. Yeah. I love her.
She represents all those things to me. Yeah. I didn't want to bring photos of my family and whatever, but I think she represents loyalty, you know, the longevity, the staying kind of true to self. And that's kind of what she is to me. But I'm not saying I'm a 50-year-old woman who needs a teddy bear. That's not it. It's more, she's definitely ornamental. The second thing I brought down is, it's going to be a bit soft. That's what all the
We'll liven it up. We'll liven it up.
This is a parsley plant. So, I mean, I was coming to greenhouse, obviously, and, you know, I wanted to bring a plant. You've got loads of plants here. I hope this lasts. I don't mind if she doesn't last.
Is this for us?
Yeah, you can keep it.
Sweetie.
But it's again, this is a representation. Like I said, I love food. I love plants. I grow out my back. I've grown potatoes, onions. My dad did that. He grew beetroot, carrots, everything. And I love wholesome food. So this represents kind of the plants, the growing, the growth. It also represents food because it's parsley.
Yeah.
So that is a side of me that I guess a lot of people don't necessarily know. I mean,
because you're from the fashion world, so I sort of assumed you haven't eaten since 1997.
Yeah, you just like live on like. Does this represent 20 meals for you?
No, you just live on those protein balls.
Five leaves a day.
I've never seen someone take multiple bites of a protein ball. Just two at once.
Love it. So, man after my own heart.
No, you do. You're into food, and you're into.
No, I love food, and the thing is, and you know, we're talking about size and whatever. I do eat healthily and wholesomely, and I have been size 8 through to size 12 and 14. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether my body's kind of decided on its kind of set point weight. It goes up and down. I am curvy enough, and I love my curves. You know, I think when I said earlier about my boobs felt quite big, like it's not a humble brag. I'm not unhappy in any way, but actually so many people are unhappy with their bodies.
Yeah.
And whilst we've got this newfound respect and love for bodies of all shapes and sizes, there are still so many people out there who hate their bodies. And it's really hard to self-care when you don't love the body you're in.
Yeah.
You know, so I think
what you said-
food for me is a big part of self-care, eating wholesomely and healthily.
Yeah.
And it's also really comforting. Like there's nothing I like more than sitting around a table with friends breaking bread.
Where we're talking about our bodies earlier. We'll close off the show. But we were talking about our bodies earlier when we were having that whole kind of conversation where we're checking ourselves and looking in the camera and all the rest of it, doing the things that you do. And the thing that you said, just to clarify for our audience, was I have a bit of a problem with my boobs. The only way that I like them is when I'm naked, which I was just like, that is the most. You were saying it's not even a humble brag. It's just a
brag.
Yeah, I love it.
My titties are only good when they're sort of like out.
The clock has struck
they're
midnight.
really good. They're good boobs.
No, well, I said my boobs felt really big sitting down in this jumpsuit, and this is definitely a more standing outfit. But anyway, no, what I had said was that they look and feel really big. And then you said, you've got great boobs. And I said, no, I love my boobs naked, but I find them hard to style.
Totally.
So, like, yes, I do love my boobs naked. I like my body. I'm quite happy with my body. It's like, you know, when I think about the life it's delivered, and I think about, I mean, I'm grey, I've got wrinkles, I've got, like, you know, a couple of hairs on my big toe.
There's barely a grey on your head, Kathy.
Yeah. Pardon me?
There's barely a grey on your head.
Oh no, there are greys. I've just sprayed them with that root touch-up thing.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah. I mean, I could show you here. Do you want to see? I know you're
confirmed.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, confirmed. There are greys.
She's like Philip Schofield before he was cancelled.
Yeah. but I think it's important for us to say as well, and I want to make sure that the people that are watching can also hear this too, is that we're so grateful to you for being our friend and for helping us in the way that you have here. And we have hopefully got loads more exciting stuff to work on with you, and we hope that we get to see loads more of you, because you're fucking fierce. And, you know, it's whenever you are somebody who, as you said about, you know, communicates honestly and directly and things like that, often people in this country don't really know how to equate with that, do you know? And I know that for us, we have a similar experience where, because we communicate directly, there's actually real love in that. You know, we don't leave it to, you know, figuring things out or hints or assumptions and things. We're direct communicators, but that also means that whenever we're saying positive things, we really mean them. Yeah. And if we have something negative to say, we will say it. So there's no room for worries and things like that. But I think, like, who you are and how you approach the world is really, really positive. Do you know? I think you're like a really amazing example to people of every age. You know, I think like what you do on social media is really, really fierce and really honest and really raw. And I think that that's also something that people are a bit afraid of these days as well, of just being themselves and, you know, having that as an example to other people. So you've helped us so much, and we're so grateful, and we love you, and we always have such a great time with you.
Aww. So many meetings we're in night off, where we'll see people in the street or people call in, and the amount of times I have to listen to the fucking name Cathy Martin, it's so mad. But lots of the people as well that we're hoping to attract, because we've got the hippie, lefty, crazy
but that market's so
activists, and we've got the queers, and we've got all a lot of groups that kind of coalesce in here and with our project. But what we're really interested in doing, or one part of what we're interested in doing, is welcoming in our wider community. Yeah. And that might be people who, maybe people that can support in other ways, maybe businesses that we can collaborate with. And your name really lends weight to that. Like we were talking to Memento the other day. We're doing a brilliant like Pride collaboration, and they had wonderful things to say about you. And I think, it is really helpful. It's more helpful than I think maybe you know. It's powerful. So thank you.
Yeah, I think people think that they can't interact with something like this because maybe they're not enough in the world of being progressive, or the queerness, or the fashion, or whatever. So whenever people can kind of see that our worlds collide really, really beautifully, I think that's really, really helpful.
I think sometimes people are, when they approach anyone or an organisation, especially in the LGBTQ kind of space, they're afraid of saying the wrong thing.
Yes,
totally.
Using 100%. The wrong pronoun, for example, is a genuine fear of like cis people, you know, and I get that, because I've probably, you know, addressed you guys in the wrong way at some point since I've known you, but you never correct me in a bad way. I don't even remember if you've actually corrected me. And that's okay. You know, I think it's, when I talked earlier about sustainability and fashion and stuff like that, I think we all need to be a little bit more respectful and accepting of flaws.
Yeah.
As long as those flaws are part of a growth. You know,
Totally.
and you know, you don't have to make radical change. And being an activist or supporting activists doesn't make you this radical, crazy person. It's
not
a
black and
really
white.
good
It's
thing.
human.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, exactly. And the more people can hear us all having these conversations, then hopefully those conversations get modelled for, you know, different spaces and things as well.
Well, thank you so much. It has been
We could sit and
an
talk to you all day
absolute
long.
pleasure. We cannot wait to come to the next Fashion Week. We're going to sit for it. We want a row in front of Fro. I want to sit in front of Louis Vance.
Well, you'll be out the back. You'll
And
be
look,
helping to run it.
I want to look back and be like, oh, did you not get the invite? Just we're besties. Oh yeah, we'll be out the back. We'll be out the back.
And we must talk Sustainable Fashion Week as well.
For sure. There's so much stuff coming up.
Yeah.
But thank you again. And
we love you. You're great.
we love you. We'll see you very,
Thank
very
you.
soon.
I can't wait to hug you properly outside of the confines of the seat. I feel like I need Susie back to cuddle.
Oh,
You
yes.
want her back? You want her back?
No, it's just because I'm feeling a bit like overwhelmed with the compliments.
That's a Northern Irish response to any positive feedback.
Yeah.
You're like, no, I'm not. Shut up. Yeah, shut up.
Whatever.
Well,
Next.
until next time, get involved with us. Give us your money if you've got it. Come to Greenhouse if you can. And if you can't do any of that, just support us on social media because every little helps when it comes to our little project. Thank you so much.
Okay, show some love. Bye.